Gardening for beginners. Whether you're just starting out on gardening or you need a quick refresher course, I'm here for you and hopefully I can answer a lot of your questions. If after this video is done you still have more questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below on this video and I will answer them for you as soon as possible. These tips and tricks are applicable whether you're starting off with a full plot of land that you intend to garden, a raised garden bed that you're going to fill with fruits and veggies, or a simple pot to start your container gardening journey. My first suggestion is to have a plan. It's always a good idea to have in your mind or on paper what you intend to do with your garden, what plants you want to grow, when is the best time for them to grow, and to be prepared for harvest. Another trick that goes along with this is to start small. Sure, you might be ready to go and get your hands dirty, but keep it to a minimum if possible, so that way you won't get quickly overwhelmed. One of the things that are very critical for you to think about is location. You want to make sure that wherever your garden is, regardless of its size, that it gets at least 6 hours of full sunlight, as that's the minimum for most vegetable plants. Another thing to consider is, what do you want to grow? I highly suggest that you grow what you like to eat. Sure, there's tons of exciting new varieties out there for you to try, but if you don't like what you're growing, then all that time and effort may seem wasted once it comes to harvest. Another thing to consider is what grows best in your area. If you pick a vegetable that you really love that thrives in your area, then you're going to cut out a lot of the work and frustration right from the beginning. A good way to know what grows best in your area is to know your zone. I will have a link in the description below of where you can find your zone if you live in the US. If you live outside of the United States, a quick Google search can show you what zone you're in. Once you know what zone you're in, it's easy enough to find out when your frost dates are, and this will give you a good idea of when to plant your seeds, and more importantly, when to buy your seeds. You want to make sure that you have your seeds purchased well before you intend to plant them. Now that you have all these good information tips on growing your seeds, you'll know if your zone requires you to plant them ahead of time or to direct sow into your garden. And what I mean by that is, in the north or places where they have extended periods of cold, you want to start many of your plants indoors where you can control the temperature. This is going to extend your growing season and give you a bountiful crop. Another thing you want to consider that I've already touched on briefly is, what type of garden do you intend on doing? Do you have a small apartment and only a small location that gets direct sun? Then container gardening might be ideal for you. This is where you use a pot to grow your plants in rather than directly into the soil. If you're doing container gardening, you want to think about the plants you intend to grow and what size they'll be at maturity, as that's the size of pot you will need. If you have vast amounts of land and tons of time and energy, then traditional or in-soil gardening might be right for you. This is where you're going to till and amend the soil right in your dirt and plant directly there. If you're doing traditional in-ground gardening, you want to make sure that you know what kind of native soil type you have and what amendments you'll need, because you will need to prepare that soil prior to gardening. A third option is the raised garden bed. This is perfect for people who have back issues or knee and joint issues, as it raises the level of your growing surface up to you, making it more convenient and less stressful to garden. If you intend on doing a raised bed style of garden, you want to go ahead and plan out whether you're going to build or purchase your bed, and make sure that the costs of not only the structure but the materials you'll need to fill that bed are within your budget. Soil amendments is another helpful thing for you to be thinking about as you're planning your gardening experience. Many types of soil and many types of garden need a little extra help to make your plants happy. These can differ extremely depending on what type of plant you intend to grow. For example, if you're growing blueberries, they like acidic soil, so you'll have to amend your soil to raise or lower the pH. Compost is your friend. If you have the ability to make your own compost, I highly recommend you do so. I'm going to put a link to my compost video that goes into further detail about compost in the description below. Compost is a great way to get free soil enrichment to keep your vegetables happy. A trick that I wish somebody had told me at the beginning of my gardening journey was to save your seed packets. Seed packets are so much more than a simple container to get the seeds from where they're grown to you. They also have lots of information on them. This information is going to be helpful for you throughout the growing season of your plant. Also, if this plant becomes a winner, you want to make sure you have record of which ones work best for you so you can get those seeds again. Another thing that I can't stress enough is companion planting. I love companion planting so much that I did a separate video just on that topic. Again, link in the description below. Companion planting is going to help you, the gardener, as putting these buddy plants together will help repel insects and enrich the soil as both plants mature and grow together. Okay, so you've got all your information, you've got your seeds, you're growing your plants, they're in the ground, you're good to go. But don't ignore them. That's right, they might be seeming like they're just doing wonderful on their own, but trust me, if you go out and inspect them each day or whenever you can, as much as you can, you'll be able to get those weeds out before they get too unruly, take control of those pests before they damage your plants. This is going to save you a lot of time and frustration. Pulling out those little baby weeds is so much easier than just tilling the entire ground all over again. My best trick for maintaining a healthy garden and avoiding pest infection is to observe your plants closely, particularly the underside of the leaves. If you can gently twist a leaf and look at the underside, you will know firsthand if you're getting the beginnings of a pest infection. And this is going to save you a lot of time, money, and frustration. Once you notice that small bit of pest infection, you want to identify the pest and take care of it immediately. Water! Now this might seem like a no-brainer because of course plants need water. That's like one of the main things, right? And if you're in a rainy area such as I am, then it kind of takes care of itself. But water can be problematic at times. One of the things I recommend is rather than having a sprinkler system to water your garden, do a drip irrigation system. This is going to keep the water down on the soil at the root level rather than on the plant itself. There are many fungal diseases that thrive in a moist, humid environment. So if you keep the water at the roots rather than on the leaves and the plant, you will avoid a fungal infection. There are a few plants that do enjoy a little sprinkle on their leaves, but even those need it just occasionally. I highly suggest your regular watering be done at soil level. Mulch is going to help you with your watering as well, because a nice layer of mulch on top of your dirt, whether it be whatever type of gardening you're doing, is going to retain the moisture, making it that you don't have to water quite as often. It's also going to help with weed control, as it will be difficult for the weed seeds to germinate and sprout to find sunlight. Another thing about mulch you want to remember though is don't compact your mulch against the plants that you are trying to grow, as it may keep moisture against the base of the stem and induce rot. When it comes to herbs, you want to trim them frequently. Each time you trim a portion of your herb plant, it is going to sprout and create a more bushy growth habit. This will give you plenty of fresh herbs to use in your kitchen. Many herbs retain their flavor and become less bitter if you keep them trimmed as well, as it prohibits them from becoming woody. My last tip for you on your gardening journey is be prepared for harvest time. I know this may seem like I'm jumping leap years ahead, but trust me, if you have a bunch of tomatoes or a bunch of potatoes or a bunch of mustard greens, you want to know what you're going to do with all of them. Do you have friends that you're coordinating with that are growing something that you can trade? That's a great system. Do you have freezer space where you can pack in seal-tight containers to freeze them for long storage. That's what we did with our copious amounts of mustard greens. Are you into canning or preserving? Another great way. And don't forget to pickle or ferment your veggies, as that's a great way to introduce probiotics into your diet. I hope you found these tips and tricks for beginning gardeners to be helpful. Look up! There's another video you might like equally as well.